I'm Mia, 28 years old, and my sister Ava just sent me the most hurtful text of my life. No place for you. The wedding is for more important people. I stared at my phone screen, tears starting to well up, but then something shifted inside me. Instead of begging to be included, I laughed and booked a luxury Miami Beach vacation for the exact same weekend. For once, I chose myself over family drama. Little did I know that while I'd be sipping mojitos by the ocean, her perfect fairy tale would completely fall apart. Where are you watching from today? Hit that like button and subscribe if you've ever chosen your own happiness over toxic family situations. Trust me, what happened next changed everything. To understand why Ava's text hit so deep, but also felt like the final straw, you need to know about our relationship. I'm 5 years older than Ava, and from the moment she was born, I was taught to put her needs above my own. Our childhood home operated with an unspoken rule where Ava was the princess and the rest of us revolved around her world. My mom, Megan, particularly favored Ava. When I brought home straight A's in high school, my achievement got acknowledged with a simple good job. But when Ava brought home even a single B plus, there would be celebrations and shopping trips. During my 18th birthday, my parents forgot to order a cake because they were busy planning Ava's dance competition. I ended up baking my own birthday cake that night while everyone attended her performance. The pattern continued throughout our lives. When I got accepted to college with a partial scholarship, my achievement was overshadowed because Ava had won a local beauty contest the same week. My graduation ceremony was barely attended because Ava had gotten sick with the common cold, requiring mom's full attention at home. My dad, Bob, would sometimes acknowledge the imbalance with an apologetic glance, but he never intervened. Despite this obvious favoritism, I remained a supportive sister. When Ava went through her first heartbreak at 19, I drove 6 hours from my job to comfort her. When she failed her driving test 4 times, I spent countless weekends teaching her until she passed. During her sophomore year of college, when she ran out of money after overspending on designer clothes, I paid her rent for 3 months straight without telling our parents, using savings from my marketing job. The inequality grew more pronounced as we entered adulthood. At 25, I helped organize a surprise 50th birthday party for mom, spending weeks planning every detail. Ava showed up 2 hours late with a hastily purchased card, yet somehow received most of the credit for the successful event. At family gatherings, my accomplishments at work were glossed over while Ava's part-time retail job was discussed as if she'd been promoted to CEO. 3 years ago, when I went through a painful breakup with my boyfriend of 4 years, mom told me to stop dwelling on it after just 3 days. But when Ava and her college boyfriend split after 8 months, mom let her move back home for 6 months, cooking her favorite meals and constantly consoling her. Last year, Ava met Abraham Wilson, the son of a prominent local real estate developer. He was 34, divorced, with no kids, financially stable, and surprisingly down to earth despite his family's wealth. When they first started dating, Abraham and I got along well. He seemed genuinely interested in getting to know Ava's family, asking thoughtful questions about my career and digital marketing, and even recommending books we both enjoyed. For the first time, I felt Ava had found someone who might help her mature. Abraham seemed to value hard work and responsibility, qualities I'd always hoped Ava would develop. During family dinners in those initial months, I watched as he gently encouraged her to talk about her aspirations beyond social media and shopping. I remember thinking that perhaps this relationship would be different from her previous pattern of dramatic flings with questionable guys. Those initial months gave me hope that with Abraham's positive influence, Ava might grow to appreciate family bonds beyond what we could do for her. Unfortunately, I couldn't have been more wrong about how things would unfold. 8 months into their relationship, Ava announced her engagement to Abraham at a Sunday family dinner. The ring was enormous, a 4-carat diamond that caught every bit of light in the dining room. While I was surprised by the speed of their engagement, I was genuinely happy for my sister. That night, I hugged her tightly and promised to help with anything she needed for the wedding. In the weeks that followed the engagement party disaster, I was systematically excluded from wedding planning activities. The bridesmaid dress shopping was rescheduled without notifying me. When I called the bridal boutique to confirm our appointment, they informed me that the wedding party had come in the previous day. Ava later told me it was a last-minute change, and they had tried to reach me, though my phone showed no missed calls or messages. "You know how crazy wedding planning gets," she said with a dismissive laugh. "There's so much going on, sometimes wires get crossed." But this wasn't an isolated incident. Over the following weeks, a pattern emerged that was impossible to ignore. The flower selection appointment happened without me. The cake tasting was scheduled and executed while I was at work, despite my having specifically requested time off for it weeks in advance. Each time I asked Ava about these exclusions, her explanations became more elaborate and less believable. Susan wanted to handle the flowers personally, she explained about the florist meeting. She has such sophisticated taste, and honestly, I thought it would be easier with fewer people giving opinions. When I pointed out that I had specifically taken a half-day off work for the appointment, her response was a shrug. "I forgot to tell you about the change, sorry." The wedding shower, which traditionally would have been my responsibility to organize as maid of honor, was planned by Abraham's sister, Rachel, instead. I only learned about this when I received a formal invitation in the mail, an elegant cream cardstock with gold lettering that arrived just 4 days before the event. The invitation felt like a slap in the face. Not only had I been excluded from planning what should have been my responsibility, but I was being treated like a distant relative rather than the bride's sister. The timing made it impossible for me to attend due to a work conference I couldn't reschedule on such short notice. When I called Ava to explain that I couldn't make it, her response was cold. "That's fine. Rachel has everything handled anyway. She really knows how to throw a proper party." The implication was clear. Unlike me, apparently. I later learned from my cousin Jessica, who did attend, that the shower was an elaborate affair at Susan's country club. "It was beautiful," Jessica told me over lunch a few days later. "But honestly, Mia, it felt weird that you weren't there. People kept asking where you were." "What did Ava tell them?" "That you were too busy with work to help plan it or attend. She made it sound like you weren't interested in being involved." Jessica paused, clearly uncomfortable. There was also this moment where Susan made a comment about how some people can't handle elegant events, referencing the wine incident at the engagement party. Ava just laughed along. The systematic nature of my exclusion became even more apparent when I discovered through social media that there had been multiple bridesmaids' lunches and planning sections that I knew nothing about. Photos appeared on Instagram showing Ava and her wedding party, Abraham's sister and 2 cousins at expensive restaurants and spas, all tagged with captions about wedding planning fun and bridesmaid bonding. Each time I tried to discuss these issues with Ava, she became increasingly defensive and dismissive. "You're making this about you," she would say, her voice taking on an exasperated tone. "This is my special time, and I need people who are going to be supportive and positive, not create more stress and drama." The irony wasn't lost on me. I was being accused of creating drama for pointing out that I was being systematically excluded from events I should have been central to planning. Our mother, Megan, reinforced this narrative at every opportunity, telling me I needed to stop being so sensitive and support your sister without conditions. According to her, I was being dramatic about normal wedding planning chaos and needed to rise above petty concerns. Weddings are stressful, Mom would say, whenever I tried to express my hurt feelings. Ava has enough on her plate without you adding to it with complaints about every little thing. But these weren't little things. They were deliberate exclusions from major wedding events, and the pattern was becoming impossible to ignore. When I pointed out to Mom that I hadn't been included in any wedding planning for weeks, her response was telling. Susan has very specific ideas about how things should be done. She's from a prominent family and knows about these things. Maybe it's better if you just focus on showing up and being supportive on the day itself. The message was clear. I wasn't sophisticated enough, wealthy enough, or important enough to be truly included in this wedding. I was being relegated to the role of a background player in my own sister's most important day. The breaking point came when I wasn't informed about the final bridesmaid dress fitting. I had been waiting for weeks to hear about it, sending gentle reminders to Ava that went unanswered, or received dismissive responses like, "Still figuring out the schedule," or "Susan is coordinating everything." Finally, I saw photos on social media of all the bridesmaids at the boutique holding their perfectly fitted dresses and laughing together. The images were posted in real time, meaning the fitting was happening at that very moment, without me. My heart sank as I scrolled through the photos. There was Ava in her stunning wedding dress, surrounded by 4 women in pale pink gowns, all looking radiant and happy. The caption read, "Final fittings complete. My girls look absolutely perfect." I wasn't one of her girls anymore, apparently. When I confronted Ava about it later that evening, she claimed there had been a miscommunication and that Susan had handled all the arrangements directly with the boutique. Besides, she added, her tone growing colder, Susan thinks it might be better if you aren't in the wedding party anyway. She's concerned about, well, the wine incident and some other things. What other things? I demanded, though part of me dreaded the answer. Ava shifted uncomfortably, not meeting my eyes. She thinks you've been negative about everything from the beginning. The questions about our engagement timeline, the way you acted at the engagement party, just general attitude issues. She says we need positive energy only for the wedding. The accusation stung because it was so unfair. I had thrown myself into supporting this wedding from day one, taking time off work, spending money I couldn't really afford, and swallowing my pride repeatedly when I was treated poorly by Abraham's family. My only crime had been asking gentle questions out of concern for my sister and accidentally spilling some wine. Ava, you know that's not fair. I've done everything I can to support you and be positive about this wedding, even when Abraham's family has been nothing but dismissive toward me. See, there you go again, being negative about his family. This is exactly what Susan is talking about. You can't just be happy for me without finding something to criticize. It was a masterful deflection, turning my legitimate concerns about being excluded into evidence of my supposed negativity. I realized in that moment that Ava had fully bought into Susan's narrative about me, or at least found it convenient to do so. That's when I understood what was really happening. Susan had been systematically poisoning Ava against me, framing my exclusion as necessary for the wedding's success. And my sister, desperate for her future mother-in-law's approval, was allowing it to happen. Worse, she was actively participating in it. The realization was devastating, but also clarifying. This wasn't about wedding stress or miscommunications. This was about deliberate cruelty, sanctioned by my own family. 2 weeks before the wedding, I still hadn't received any information about my role in the ceremony, if I even had one anymore. The uncertainty was eating at me, creating a constant anxiety that affected my work and sleep. I found myself checking my phone obsessively, hoping for some communication that would clarify my status. The silence from Ava was deafening. We had gone from talking daily to barely exchanging pleasantries when we encountered each other at family gatherings. When I tried to initiate conversations about the wedding, her responses were monosyllabic and dismissive. Finally, I decided I couldn't live with the uncertainty any longer. I needed to know where I stood, even if the answer was painful. I crafted a careful text message to Ava, trying to strike a tone that was direct but not confrontational. Hi, Ava. I know things have been tense between us, but I really need clarification about the wedding. Am I still in the wedding party? If so, what do I need to know about rehearsal, timeline, etc.? If not, I'd prefer to know now so I can plan accordingly. I love you and want your day to be perfect. I sent the message at 10 a.m. on a Tuesday, figuring she would be awake and not too busy to respond. Hours passed without a reply. I tried to distract myself with work, but found myself checking my phone every few minutes. By 5 p.m., there was still nothing. I considered calling, but something held me back. If she wanted to respond, she would. The silence itself was becoming an answer. Then, at 8:37 p.m., my phone finally pinged with her response. No place for you. The wedding is for more important people. I read those words over and over, unable to process that my own sister would be so deliberately cruel. The message was so brutal, so completely lacking in any sisterly affection or even basic human kindness that I literally gasped out loud. My hands were shaking as I screenshot the message, some instinct telling me I might need proof of this level of cruelty later. Then I tried calling her immediately, needing to hear her voice, hoping this was some kind of mistake or misunderstanding. The call went straight to voicemail. I tried again with the same result. Either her phone was off or she was deliberately avoiding me after sending that devastating message. I tried calling our parents, desperate for some kind of mediation or explanation. Mom answered on the fourth ring, her voice distracted. Hi, honey, I can't really talk right now. We're at the venue doing the final walkthrough with Susan and Abraham. Can I call you back later? Mom, I need to talk to you about something important. Ava just sent me a really hurtful message about the wedding. I'm sure it's just wedding stress, sweetie. You know how brides get. I'll call you later, okay? The line went dead before I could respond. That promised call never came. Later that evening, around 11 p.m., I received another text from Ava. Susan thinks it's best if you aren't in the wedding at all. You've been negative about everything and we need positive vibes only. You can still come as a guest if you promise to behave yourself and not cause any scenes. The conditional nature of that invitation, if you promise to behave yourself, felt like the final insult. I was being treated like a problematic child rather than a sister who had done nothing wrong except fail to meet the approval standards of people who had never given me a fair chance. It was at that moment, reading that patronizing, conditional invitation to my own sister's wedding, that something inside me finally broke, and then immediately felt liberated. The initial shock of Ava's text left me paralyzed on my couch for nearly an hour. My hands shook so badly I couldn't even hold my phone steady to reread the messages. The hurt was physical, like a heavy weight pressing against my chest, making it difficult to breathe normally. The emotional pain was unlike anything I had experienced before. It wasn't just the cruelty of the words, but the recognition that my relationship with my sister, someone I had loved and supported unconditionally for 28 years, had been fundamentally damaged, possibly beyond repair. But alongside the devastation, something unexpected began to emerge. A strange sense of clarity. For the first time in months, the situation was completely unambiguous. There was no gray area, no room for misinterpretation or excuse-making. Ava had shown me exactly how she valued our relationship, and there was something almost freeing about finally knowing where I stood. Eventually, I did what any heartbroken 28-year-old would do. I called my best friend, Olivia. She answered on the second ring, immediately sensing something was wrong from my voice. "Mia, what happened? You sound terrible." Through tears, I read her both of Ava's messages. The silence that followed was so complete, I thought the call had dropped. "She said what?" Olivia's voice finally came through, rising in disbelief and anger. "Mia, that's beyond hurtful. That's emotional abuse. That's your sister treating you like you're nothing." As I recounted the entire saga of my gradual exclusion from the wedding, the missed appointments, the social media photos I wasn't in, the systematic removal from all planning activities, Olivia listened with growing outrage. "I can't believe your family has let this happen," she said when I finished. "Your mother should have shut this down months ago instead of enabling it." When I finished the full story, rather than offering the sympathy and validation I expected, Olivia suggested something completely different. "Mia, I have a question for you, and I want you to really think about the answer. Why are you still fighting to be included in an event where you're clearly not wanted?" The question stopped me short. "What do you mean?" "I mean, why are you subjecting yourself to this? Instead of going to this wedding and sitting in the back row, pretending everything's fine while watching your sister marry into a family that's treated you like dirt, what if you just didn't go?" The thought had never occurred to me. In my family, attendance at important events wasn't optional. It was mandatory, regardless of how poorly you were treated or how much it hurt you to be there. Not go to my sister's wedding? Olivia, my mother would never forgive me. The family would never get over it. Has your mother done anything to deserve your consideration right now? Has Ava? They've been letting you get bulldozed by Abraham's family for months. Your mother has enabled every bit of this abuse instead of standing up for her own daughter. She continued, building momentum. "You know what, Mia? Don't just skip the wedding. Go somewhere amazing instead. That weekend is the beginning of June, perfect beach weather in Florida. Take all the money you would have spent on a bridesmaid dress, wedding gifts, hotels, travel, all of it, and book yourself a luxury vacation instead." The idea was so radical, so completely outside my people-pleasing, family-first mindset that I actually laughed out loud. But once planted, the thought began to take root and grow. Why shouldn't I choose myself for once? Instead of watching Ava marry into a family that had been nothing but dismissive and cruel toward me, I could be lounging on white sand beaches, getting spa treatments, eating amazing food, and remembering what it felt like to be valued and respected. "Olivia, that's crazy. I can't just abandon my family." They abandoned you first, honey. They've made it crystal clear that you don't matter to them. So why not act like you matter to yourself? That night, I stayed up until 3 a.m. researching resorts in Florida. The more I looked, the more excited I became about the possibility of truly choosing myself for once in my life. I settled on an adults-only 5-star property in Miami Beach, known for its pristine beaches, world-class spa, and exceptional service. The cost made me wince initially, nearly $3,500 for 4 nights. But I had savings, and as I calculated what I would have spent on the wedding anyway, the numbers weren't that different. Bridesmaid dress, shoes, wedding gift, shower gift, bachelorette party expenses, hotel room, travel cost. It all added up to nearly the same amount. More importantly, for once in my life, I decided I was worth it. I booked the trip at sunrise, feeling a strange mix of guilt and exhilaration as I entered my credit card information. The confirmation email arrived immediately, making it real and irreversible. By 9 a.m., my phone was ringing. It was Mom. "Mia, Ava tells me you're causing problems about the wedding party arrangements." She began without even a greeting, her voice sharp with disapproval. "Good morning to you too, Mom," I replied, surprised by the steadiness in my own voice. Actually, Ava made it perfectly clear that I'm not welcome in the wedding party anymore. Her exact words were that the wedding is for more important people than me. Later that evening, I received another text from Ava. "Susan thinks it's best if you aren't in the wedding at all. You've been negative about everything, and we need positive vibes only. You can still come as a guest if you promise to behave yourself." It was at that moment, reading that conditional invitation to my own sister's wedding, that something inside me finally broke. And then immediately felt liberated. The initial shock of Ava's text left me paralyzed on my couch for nearly an hour. My hand shook so badly I couldn't even type a response. The hurt was physical, like a heavy weight pressing against my chest. Eventually, I did what any heartbroken 28-year-old would do. I called my best friend, Olivia. "She said what?" Olivia's voice rose an octave after I read her the message. "Mia, that's beyond hurtful. That's emotional abuse." As I recounted the entire saga of my gradual exclusion from the wedding, Olivia listened patiently. When I finished, rather than offering the sympathy I expected, she suggested something completely different. "Why are you still fighting to be included in an event where you're clearly not wanted? Instead of subjecting yourself to more humiliation on the wedding day, watching from the back row while pretending everything's fine, what if you just didn't go?" The thought had never occurred to me. In my family, attendance at important events wasn't optional. It was mandatory, regardless of how poorly you were treated. Not go to my sister's wedding? Mom would never forgive me, I said. "Has your mother done anything to deserve your consideration right now?" Olivia challenged. "Has Ava? They've been letting you get bulldozed by Abraham's family for months." She continued, her voice growing more animated. "You know what? Don't just skip it. Go somewhere amazing instead. That weekend is the beginning of June. Perfect beach weather. Use the money you would have spent on gifts and outfits for a luxury vacation instead." The idea was so radical, so completely outside my people-pleasing mindset, that I laughed out loud. But once planted, the thought took root. Why shouldn't I choose myself for once? Instead of watching Ava marry into a family that had been nothing but dismissive toward me, I could be lounging on a white sand beach. That night, I stayed up until 3 in the morning researching resorts in Florida. I settled on an adults-only 5-star property in Miami Beach, known for its pristine beaches and world-class spa. The cost made me wince, nearly $3,500 for 4 nights. But I had savings, and for once, I decided I was worth it. I booked the trip at sunrise, feeling a strange mix of guilt and exhilaration. By 9 a.m., my phone was ringing. It was Mom. "Mia, Ava tells me you're causing problems about the wedding arrangements." "Good morning to you too, Mom," I replied, a newfound steadiness in my voice. "Actually, Ava made it clear I'm not welcome in the wedding party anymore. Her exact words were that the wedding is for more important people." "You know how stressed brides get," Mom said dismissively. "She didn't mean it like that, but Susan did mention you seemed uncomfortable at the engagement party, especially after that wine incident. They think it might be better if you attend as a guest to reduce everyone's stress." The mental gymnastics my mother was performing to avoid acknowledging the insult was almost impressive. To reduce everyone's stress, I repeated flatly. Yes, and we need you to call Susan and apologize again for ruining her dress. It was designer, Mia, very expensive. It was then that I decided to share my decision. Actually, I won't be attending the wedding at all. I've booked a vacation for that weekend. The silence that followed was so complete, I checked to see if the call had dropped. Finally, Mom spoke, her voice trembling with anger. What? You would miss your only sister's wedding for a vacation? This is exactly the kind of selfish behavior that Susan has been worried about. I'm selfish after being systematically excluded from every wedding event, after being told I'm not important enough to be there, after you expect me to apologize again for an accident? This isn't about you, she shouted, her standard response whenever I expressed hurt feelings. Exactly, Mom. For once, I'm making a decision that is about me. She threatened to put Dad on the phone, her usual tactic when I wasn't falling in line, but I stood firm. I'm 28 years old, and I've spent my entire life being told my feelings don't matter compared to Ava's. Not this time. After ending the call with Mom, I went to work and requested vacation time, something I rarely did. My boss, Sarah, looked surprised but pleased. It's about time you took some real time off, Mia. You've accrued so many unused vacation days. My coworkers reacted with a mix of shock and admiration when I mentioned my solo Miami trip. Instead of your sister's wedding? Bold move, said my colleague Trevor, with an approving nod. Over the next week, I prepared for my trip with a sense of purpose I hadn't felt in years. I bought new swimsuits, sundresses, and even splurged on an expensive pair of designer sunglasses. With each purchase, the weight of family obligations seemed to lift further from my shoulders. The night before my departure, I received an unexpected call from Dad's older sister, Aunt Caroline. She had always been the family truth teller, maintaining a certain distance from the dynamics that dominated our immediate family. Mia, I heard about your vacation, she said without preamble. Good for you. Surprised by her support, I asked how she knew about my plans. Your father called me, trying to get me to talk some sense into you. Instead, I told him it was about time you stood up for yourself. She paused before continuing. There's something else you should know. There's already trouble in paradise. I have a friend whose daughter works at the country club. Apparently, there was a huge argument between Abraham and Ava yesterday during the final venue walkthrough. Something about money and lies. Susan was there too, and it got ugly. What kind of lies? I asked, suddenly concerned, despite everything. I don't know the details, but it was serious enough that they left separately. Just thought you should know. What you're missing might be more drama than celebration. As I packed my final items that night, I wondered briefly if I should reconsider my trip. Was I abandoning my sister when she might need me? Then I remembered her text. No place for you. The wedding is for more important people. I zipped my suitcase closed and set my alarm for my early morning flight. The flight to Miami was smooth, though I spent most of it wrestling with lingering guilt. By the time the plane began its descent, however, the view of crystal blue water stretching to the horizon had started to melt away my concerns. The airport was busy but efficient, and within an hour of landing, I was being driven to the resort in an air-conditioned luxury car. First time to Miami Beach? The driver asked, skillfully navigating the traffic. First time anywhere by myself, I admitted. I'm usually the one planning trips for others. He nodded knowingly in the rearview mirror. Then you are overdue, miss. Sometimes we must remember to fill our own cup first. The resort exceeded every expectation. My room, or rather suite, featured a private balcony overlooking the ocean, a massive bathroom with a soaking tub, and a king-sized bed with linens so fine they felt like sleeping on a cloud. After unpacking, I changed into a swimsuit and headed to the main pool area. I settled into a cushioned lounger, ordered a piña colada, and for the first time in months, took a deep breath that didn't feel constricted by anxiety. The server who brought my drink introduced himself as Carlos, a 30-year-old local with an easy smile and warm eyes. "You look like someone who just escaped something," he commented while setting down my drink. I laughed. "Is it that obvious? We get many people here running from something. Breakups, work stress, family drama. The ocean has a way of washing it all away, at least temporarily." "Family drama," I confirmed. "My sister's wedding is tomorrow, and I'm here instead." Rather than looking shocked, Carlos simply nodded. "Sometimes the bravest thing is to walk away from what hurts you. Enjoy your drink. The first one is always the sweetest." Later that afternoon, I met an older couple, Robert and Grace, celebrating their 35th wedding anniversary. We chatted during the sunset cocktail hour, and when I briefly explained my situation, Grace reached over and patted my hand. "Honey, at 79, let me tell you a secret. Family is important, but so are boundaries. I didn't speak to my own sister for 3 years in my 30s. Best decision I ever made. When we reconnected, it was on equal footing, not with me constantly bending to her will." That first evening, I had dinner alone at the resort's seafood restaurant, enjoying fresh grouper while watching the sunset paint the sky in spectacular oranges and pinks. My phone had been relatively quiet, with just a few messages from Olivia asking how the resort was. Around 9 p.m., however, she sent a text that caught my attention. "Just heard from Kelly, who works with Susan's niece. Apparently, there's major drama happening with wedding preparations. Something about Abraham discovering financial issues. Keep your phone on tomorrow." I was curious, but not concerned enough to let it disrupt my newfound peace. I replied with a quick, "Thanks for the update," and decided to focus on my plans for the next day. My second day in paradise began with a sunrise yoga session on the beach, followed by a decadent breakfast buffet. I signed up for a jet ski tour, joining a small group of tourists exploring the coastline around Miami Beach. Our guide, a charismatic woman named Maria, showed us hidden coves and told fascinating stories about the area's history. "This used to be all swampland," she explained as we paused near a secluded inlet. "Now look at it, paradise built from nothing." In the afternoon, I treated myself to a massage at the resort spa. The therapist commented that I was carrying stress like armor and encouraged me to visit more frequently. "Your shoulders tell a story," she said, while working out years of accumulated tension. That evening, which was Ava's wedding day, I made a deliberate decision. I would go completely off the grid. I placed my phone in the room safe, requested a do not disturb status from the front desk, and committed to being fully present in my surroundings. I spent the sunset hour at the beachside bar, sipping a perfectly crafted mojito courtesy of Carlos, who had become my friendly resort guide. The sky erupted in a spectacular display of color, as if nature itself was celebrating my decision to prioritize my well-being. "You look different today," Carlos observed, refilling my water glass. "More peaceful." "I feel different," I admitted, "like I've remembered who I am when I'm not constantly worried about everyone else." After dinner, I returned to my room, physically tired but mentally refreshed in a way I hadn't experienced in years. It was nearly 10 p.m. when curiosity finally got the better of me, and I retrieved my phone from the safe. The screen lit up with notifications, 42 text messages, 91 missed calls, voicemails, email alerts, social media notifications. It looked like my phone was having a seizure. The most recent text, set just 15 minutes earlier, was from Olivia. Call me now. Emergency. Wedding disaster. Abraham left Ava at the altar. Everyone looking for you. My hands trembling slightly, I sat on the edge of the bed and called Olivia. She answered on the first ring. Finally! Where have you been? The whole family is trying to reach you. I took a day off from technology, I said, still processing her text. What happened? Abraham left Ava at the altar? Oh, honey, you have no idea what you missed, Olivia said, her voice dropping to a dramatic whisper. It was epic, complete meltdown. The wedding of the century became the disaster of the decade. Start from the beginning, I said, settling back against the pillows. Okay, so I got all this from your cousin Jessica, who was there as a guest. Everything seemed normal at first. The church was decorated beautifully, white roses everywhere, those expensive candles you see in magazines. Guests were seated. Abraham and his groomsmen were at the altar looking nervous, but ready. I could picture it perfectly. The scene Ava had spent months planning down to every detail. Your parents walked in, your mom looking smug as ever in some expensive navy dress, acting like Mother of the Year. Then the music started. Bridesmaids walked down the aisle in those pale pink dresses. Finally, the wedding march began. I held my breath, knowing what was coming, but unable to imagine how it actually played out. And then, I prompted, the minister gets to the part about speak now or forever hold your peace. You know, the part that's usually just a formality. No one ever actually says anything. Someone objected? Not someone, Mia. Abraham himself. He literally raised his own hand and said, actually, I need to say something. No way, I breathed into the phone. Yes, the minister looked completely shocked, but Abraham turned to face the guests and said he couldn't go through with the wedding. He said he'd discovered Ava had been lying to him about several important things, and he couldn't start a marriage based on deception. What was she lying about? I asked, though I had my suspicions. Ava had always played fast and loose with the truth when it suited her purposes. Multiple things, from what Jessica could gather. Apparently, Abraham found out Ava had been hiding significant debt, like tens of thousands of dollars on credit cards she never disclosed. But the bigger issue was something about her claiming to have graduated college when she never finished her degree, and lying about a previous serious relationship. That tracked perfectly. Ava had dropped out of college in her junior year after changing majors twice, but she often spoke as if she'd completed her education. And there had been a serious boyfriend before Abraham who had proposed, but Ava rarely acknowledged that relationship had existed at all. What happened next? I prompted. Total chaos. Ava started crying, then screaming at Abraham that he was humiliating her in front of everyone. Susan stood up and said something like, I knew she wasn't good enough for this family. Your mom rushed to the altar and started begging Abraham to reconsider, saying all couples have misunderstandings. I winced, imagining Mom desperately trying to salvage the social standing this wedding would have given her. Abraham just shook his head, apologized to the guests for the inconvenience, and walked out. His groomsmen followed him in. Ava collapsed into this dramatic heap of white tulle and beading. Your dad tried to help her up, and your mom actually chased after Abraham through the church parking lot. The image was so absurd, I might have laughed if it wasn't so devastating for everyone involved. The guests awkwardly filed out while pretending not to notice the complete meltdown happening at the altar. The reception was obviously canceled, but Jessica said some guests still went to the country club because no one told the staff to stop preparing the food. So there were like 60 people eating wedding dinner while the bride was nowhere to be seen. I took a deep breath, processing this information. How's Ava now? According to Jessica, she's locked herself in your parents' house and is refusing to see anyone except your mom. And here's where it gets really rich, Mia. She's blaming you. Me? I wasn't even there. Exactly. She's saying you put some kind of curse on her wedding by not being there, that you were jealous of her happiness and deliberately went away to sabotage her big day. Your mother is apparently supporting this narrative completely. Of course she was. In our family, Ava could never be at fault for anything.
After ending the call with Olivia, I stepped out onto my balcony. The night was clear, stars brilliantly visible above the dark ocean. The cosmic timing of it all seemed almost too perfect, as if the universe had orchestrated my escape just before the disaster struck. Had I been there, I would undoubtedly have been pulled into the vortex of blame and emotion. Instead, I was standing in paradise, finally understanding what it meant to choose myself. My phone buzzed again, this time with a text from Aunt Caroline. "Heard you're having a better weekend than we are. Smart girl. Call me when you're ready. I have more details that will confirm you made the right choice staying away." I decided to extend my stay at the resort for 2 more days. Whatever awaited me at home could wait a little longer. The next morning, I finally called Dad. He answered immediately, his voice heavy with exhaustion. "Mia, thank God. Are you all right?" "I'm fine, Dad. Just taking some time for myself. I heard about what happened." He sighed deeply. "It's been difficult. Your mother and Ava, they're not handling it well. I heard I'm being blamed somehow." A pause. "Ava is very upset. She's saying some things she doesn't mean. Like that I cursed her wedding by not attending, Dad? That's ridiculous." "I know, sweetheart, but you know how your sister gets when she's hurt, and your mother is enabling her as usual." I finished for him, surprised by his unusual honesty. "When are you coming home?" he asked. "In 2 days. And Dad, I'm not coming straight to see them. I need some space." After speaking with Dad, I received a call from Aunt Caroline, who filled in more details about the wedding disaster. The real issue, she explained, wasn't just the lies Abraham discovered. It was how Ava reacted when confronted. According to my friend who knows Abraham's cousin, he approached Ava privately the night before the wedding with his concerns, giving her a chance to explain. And she didn't take it well, I'm guessing? She threw a crystal vase at him, Mia, then called Susan a controlling witch and said once they were married, he would need to choose between his mother and her. I winced. Ava had always had a temper, but threatening to alienate a man from his family on the eve of their wedding showed stunning lack of judgment. There's more. Abraham discovered Ava had been bad-mouthing you to his family from the beginning, painting you as this jealous, unstable sister. When he found out about your Miami trip, he actually defended your decision, saying anyone would need space from how you'd been treated. That was apparently the final straw for Ava, who couldn't stand him taking your side on anything. This revelation hit me hard. While I'd known Ava could be self-centered, I hadn't realized she'd been actively trying to poison Abraham's family against me from the start. You made the right call, Mia. This would have been a disaster with or without you there. At least this way, you spared yourself a front-row seat to the meltdown. The remaining days of my vacation passed in a blur of beach time, spa treatments, and evening conversations with Carlos, whose company I found increasingly enjoyable. By the time I boarded my flight home, I felt centered and stronger than I had in years, ready to face whatever family drama awaited me. The contrast between leaving tropical paradise and returning to suburban reality was jarring. I took an Uber directly to my apartment, grateful for the chance to shower and regroup before facing my family. When I couldn't delay any longer, I texted my parents. "I'll come over at 7 p.m. Their house looked exactly the same from the outside, but inside, the atmosphere was heavy with tension. Dad answered the door, hugging me briefly before leading me to the living room, where Mom sat perched on the edge of the sofa.
"Nice of you to finally join us," she said by way of greeting. "While you were sunbathing, your sister's life was falling apart." "Hello to you too, Mom. I'm sorry Ava is going through a difficult time." "Sorry? You abandoned her right before the most important day of her life." Dad cleared his throat. "Megan, we agreed to have a calm conversation." I looked at him with newfound appreciation. He rarely contradicted Mom. "How exactly could I have prevented Abraham from calling off the wedding?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. I wasn't aware I had that kind of influence over him. A noise from the staircase caught our attention. Ava stood there, eyes puffed from crying, wearing sweatpants and an oversized t-shirt, a far cry from her usual put-together appearance. "So, the vacation princess finally returns," she said, her voice flat. Despite everything, my heart ached seeing her so clearly devastated. "Ava, I'm sorry things didn't work out with Abraham." She descended the stairs slowly. "You're sorry? You abandoned me right when I needed my sister most." "Support you how exactly? By sitting quietly in the back row after being told I wasn't important enough to be in the wedding?" "It wasn't like that," she protested weakly. "It was exactly like that, and you know it. You chose Susan's approval over your relationship with me." For a moment, the old pattern nearly reasserted itself, the urge to comfort Ava and minimize my own hurt rising instinctively. But something had changed during my time away. "What happened between you and Abraham has nothing to do with me," I said calmly. "From what I've heard, he discovered some significant lies." Ava's head snapped up. "Who told you that?" "It doesn't matter who told me. Is it true? Did you lie to Abraham about your college degree and your finances?" Mom interjected. "Those were just white lies to impress his family." "Mom, hiding major debt isn't embellishing. It's deception." We talked for hours, covering years of resentment and misunderstandings. There were tears on both sides, but also moments of unexpected honesty. "I don't expect you to forgive me overnight," Ava finally said. "I know I've got a lot to prove, but I'm hoping we can start building something new." "I'd like that too," I replied honestly. "But you're right, it will take time and consistency." 6 months later, much had changed in our family. Ava had started therapy to address her lying and people-pleasing patterns. Mom initially resisted the idea, but Dad had been surprisingly firm about family counseling. I had maintained boundaries while slowly rebuilding trust with Ava through monthly sister lunches. The road to healing would be long, but for the first time, it felt possible. The greatest lesson I learned wasn't about weddings or family drama. It was about the quiet power of choosing myself, recognizing that love doesn't require constant self-sacrifice, and that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away from toxicity to remember your own worth. Have you ever had to choose between family obligation and self-respect? What did you decide, and how did it turn out? Share your experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to hear more stories about setting boundaries and finding your worth. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember, sometimes the most important relationship to repair is the one with yourself.